Hello everyone, in this lesson we're going to be reviewing decimals and operations. The exam expects us to understand decimal place value, do operations accurately, and understand the connection between decimals and fractions. So let's go ahead and get started. Decimals are simply another way of representing fractions with denominators that are powers of 10. So let's look at an example. Here the digit 4 is in the ones place. It's followed by our decimal, that dot right here. Our 5 is in our tenths place. Our 8 is in the hundredths place. And our 2 is in the thousandths place. You might recognize a pattern here. Let me go ahead and write a longer number to show you. We started talking about place value in our very first lesson, and you might recall that here, this is our ones place, this is our tens place, this is our hundreds place, and this is our thousands place. We follow a very similar naming convention, but in the other direction for our decimal values. So this is our tenths, this is our hundredths, this is our thousandths, and this last one here is our 10,000ths. Just like with whole numbers, each place value is worth 1/10 the value of the place to its left. So here in our original example, this 4 represents 4. This 5 here represents 5/10, written as 0.5. This 8 here represents 8/100, written as 0.08. And this 2 represents 2,000ths, written as 0.002. Decimals and fractions can represent the same quantities in different forms. So for example, 0.25, this can be read as 25/100ths, which is a really big hint for how to write the fraction. This is equal to 25 over 100. Remember that we can simplify our fractions by dividing by our greatest common factors. Here, we can divide the numerator and the denominator by 25 and get 1/4. This means that 0.25 is equal to 25/100ths and equal to 1/4. Understanding place value is really important for making this conversion, because if you know this is the hundredths place, then you will know exactly what number to write in the bottom here. If you're ever not sure, you can actually do the division. So if I do 25 divided by 100, 100 doesn't go into 25, so we're going to add our decimal, add a 0 here. 100 will go into 250 2 times. Subtract. And we're going to bring another 0 down. 100 goes into 500 5 times. Subtract, and we're done. As you can see, doing that division here shows us that 25 divided by 100 is indeed 0.25. Let's go ahead and review some decimal operations. Let's start with adding and subtracting. When adding or subtracting decimals, you always need to line up the decimal points before doing the operation. So for example, if I want to add 12.5 and 3.78, I have to rewrite the numbers so the decimal points are aligned, and then just add the place values together from right to left. After writing this, you might notice that something looks a bit off. There is a gap to the right of my 12.5. You can go ahead and actually fill that in with a 0 if you'd like. This is because adding zeros to the very end of your decimal value is not going to change the value at all. For example, 5/10 is exactly the same thing as 50/100. After we line up the decimal points, we can add like we normally do. 0 plus 8 is 8, 5 plus 7 is 12, carry the 1, 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6, and we just have a 1 there. After you do the adding, you do need to bring that decimal point down to your answer. So this is going to be 16.28. Let's also talk about multiplying decimals. The most common way to multiply decimals is by first multiplying as if the numbers were whole numbers and then placing the decimal point according to how many decimal places are in both factors. I'll show you what I mean. So let's say we have 0.4 times 0.3. When we say we can multiply them as if they're whole numbers, that means look at just those digits after the decimal point, okay? So that means we have 4 times 3. 4 times 3 is equal to 12, but that's obviously not our final answer, right? We need to place the decimal point according to the number of decimal places in our factors. So here we have 1 decimal place and 2 decimal places, okay? That means my decimal point, which is originally at the end of the sky, at the end of my 12, is going to move 2 spots to the left. Boom, boom. My decimal point is going to go right there. This is 0.12 or 0.12. When dividing by a decimal, the goal is to make the divisor, meaning what you are dividing by, a whole number. So we're going to move the decimal point in the divisor to the right until it's a whole number. And then we're going to move the decimal point the same number of places in the dividend, which is what you are dividing. Let's go ahead and try that out. So let's say I have 7.2 divided by 0.6. We start by moving the decimal point in the divisor, which is what you're dividing by, to the right until it becomes a whole number. In this case, I need to move this decimal point 1 spot to the right. This gives me 6. We're going to move the decimal point the same number of spots to the right in our dividend, which is what we are dividing, this guy. We're going to move our decimal point 1 spot to the right as well. What we end up with is 72 divided by 6. And if you remember your multiplication facts, you'll know that this is equal to 12. And that's our final answer. So to summarize, decimals use the exact same base 10 place value system as whole numbers. We also saw that decimals and fractions can represent the exact same quantities, but in different forms. And finally, we got to review adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing with decimal values. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.